Hello class, I'd like to review direct variation real quick. Okay, these are the same 4 questions that we looked at the end of Friday, or at least some classes got to 3 of them, some classes only got to 2. I want to talk about all 4 of them, and this will kind of give you an example of what I would like to see on your homework assignment. Okay, and this is reviewing, again, direct variation. So the first question says, suppose y varies directly as x. And we remember that right there is the key phrase that we're looking for whenever we want to deal with direct variation. Y varies directly as x. Okay, and we know that when it says that all we're going to do is set up a proportion to find the missing value. Okay, so the rest of the question says, if y equals 3 when x is 15, then find x when y is equal to 5. Okay, so what we're going to do to set up a proportion is we're going to set up 2 equal fractions. So we're going to say one fraction is equal to the other fraction. And we want to set it up in the proportion of, or in the ratio of, y over x. Because we know our k value, which we talked about on Friday, which stands for constant of proportionality, is in the form of y over x. So the first thing we do is we look for a ratio that we know, where I know both y and x value, or I know both values in the ratio. Okay, so in this one right here, I'm going to write it as 3 over 15, which is y over x. Okay, then it says, then find x when y is equal to 5. Well, if my 15 represented my x value, and my 3 represented my y value, I need to put my x and my y here in this ratio according to those same standards. Okay, so if my x is on the bottom, I'm going to put an x here because that's what I'm looking for. And if my y is 5, I'm going to put it on the top. Now, in order to solve a proportion, we can solve it algebraically or we can solve it on the calculator. Okay, so algebraically, I'm going to cross multiply the 3 and the x. Again, I'm going to get 3x is equal to, and then I'm going to cross multiply the 15 and the 5 and get 75. And then to get x by itself, I'm going to divide both sides by 3 and get x is equal to 25. Simple as that. Now, if you have a calculator, you're just going to take the number that's with your x, okay, or the number that's with our letter. We're going to multiply it by, or cross multiply it by the value away from it, and then divide by the number that's left. So since this 5 is on top, it's on the top value, I'm going to multiply it by the bottom. That's what I mean by cross multiply. And then we divide by what's left. And we end up with a value of x is equal to 25. So what that really means is if I've got a t-chart here, and I have this side representing x and this side representing y, if I have a x value of 15 and a y value of 3, then another point that would be on that line would be 25 and 5, because that's my x value and my y value. So both of these points right here would lie on the same line. And that's what we're looking for. Okay, that's what the direct variation means. As one changes, the other one changes. Okay, so let's look at another question. Let's look at the second one. It says, suppose y varies directly as x. So there's that phrase again. So find x when y is equal to 10. So there's one ratio. If y is equal to negative 7, when x is equal to negative 14. So we look for the one that I know, okay, where I know both values, both x and y. And so this one I know the x and the y on the second value. So I'm going to put it as negative 7 over negative 14 equals, so again that was y over x. So I'm going to do the other ratio the same exact way. Y is 10 and x is the unknown. That's what I don't know. Okay, so algebraically, I'm going to cross multiply. Negative 7x is equal to negative 14 times 10, which will give me negative 140. And then I divide both sides by negative 7, and we end up with x equaling, and in this case, you would get 20. Now, if you just wanted to do this on the calculator, okay, which is, I will allow you to do that on this particular assignment, you take the 10, cross multiply it with the negative 14, and then divide by negative 7, and you'll get the same exact answer. So what I'm going to expect to see on your assignment when you're doing each question is I will expect to see the setup and then my x equals value. Okay, so if you don't provide me with this setup, then I count your question incorrect because just giving me an answer is not going to be acceptable. So let's look at 2 more questions real quick, and then I'll talk about the assignment, and then you can complete the assignment. Suppose y varies directly as x. if x equals 15 when y is 12, find x when y is 21. Okay, so again, there's that statement. Okay, so if x is 15 when y is 12, there's the ratio I know. So 12 over 15 equals, find x when y is 21. So 21's on top, x is on bottom. Okay, and then we solve. Okay, so I cross multiply, and I end up with 12x is equal to, and then I have 15 times 21, which gives you a value of 315 if you multiply that together. We divide both sides by 12, and you end up with x equaling, and if you divide 315 by 12, you get 26.25. Now, if you do it just on the calculator, remember, you must show me setting up the proportion. You take the 21 multiplied by the 15 and divide by 12, which is the same thing that I did right here by showing the work. Okay, now we've got one more type of question that you might see occasionally, and that would be this last one here. It says, suppose y varies directly as x. If x is equal to 24 when y is equal to 10, then what is the constant of variation? Okay, so what is the constant of variation? Well, we know constant of variation is just the slope. Okay, it's all it amounts to. So we set things up as y over x, just like we did when we did t-charts or we did anything else. It's always rise over run or delta y divided by delta x. In order to find the slope, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to take our y value, 8, and we're going to take our x value, 24. And all this means for constant of variation is what is that fraction simplified? That's all it amounts to. Okay, constant of variation. So if I simplify this question, 8 over 24, I can divide them both by 8. And I end up with 1 over 3. So what is my constant of variation? 1/3. And that's all you have to do there. So in the assignment, what I'll expect you to do, I've got 5 questions. Okay, I will expect to see on your notebook paper, questions 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Okay, and on each one of those, I would expect to see a proportion and an answer. Okay, so take, for example, on number 6. Suppose y varies directly as x, and y is 16 when x is 8. Find y when x is 16. Okay, so here is what I know. So I do 16 over 8 is equal to, and it says find y when x is 16. So this time y is missing, but I know my x value. So I should see that proportion on your paper. And then in order to solve this on the calculator, you would do 16 times 16, because you take this number that's with our letter, cross multiply it. So since this one's on the bottom, you're going to cross it with the top, and you divide by the number that's left. And I should see on your paper y equals, and then a value. Okay, now you'll notice the next one, 7, x and y, no problem. But what about number 8? Number 8 says, suppose v varies directly as g. Well, the v is kind of like our y, and the g is kind of like our x. Now, what's kind of interesting is it really makes no difference which way you put these values, just as long as whatever you do in the first ratio, you also do it in the second. So since we've been doing y over x, okay, where we've got y is the first letter and x is the second letter, you could do the same thing with this one. V is the same thing as our y, and g is the same thing as our x. So you would set this up as v over g is equal to v over g. Same kind of thing, okay? Number 9, you're doing a and b, okay? So same thing. A is going to represent our x, b is going to represent our y, and you set it up accordingly. And number 10 is kind of a tricky one because they give you a fraction. Remember, you could use another format for fraction, okay? 3/2, there is another value that would be the same thing. Okay, so this is what I'd like for you to do for our warm-up today, okay, and then for most of the lesson. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm also going to play 2 other videos, or 3 other videos really, okay, that will help us begin to understand something called the Pythagorean Theorem. Okay, so once you've completed your assignment, watch the other videos that I have on the post, and you'll be good for today. Okay, so once you finish this assignment, please make sure that you attach it to Google Classroom, and I'll talk to you later.